And we are back, and after last night's disappointment for me personally, I've now had to quickly put together a video like this trying to give a positive stamp on everything that's going on by telling you the players that you need to be looking at in Game Week 23, a game week where there is yet another double game week for two of the big clubs in the league. It is, of course, the top two, Manchester City and Arsenal, so it's interesting to see how many people have left their triple captainships left over for this one. Obviously, if you watched last week's video, you will know that I advised you not to take the triple captain option up on a Manchester United player and instead save it for a certain Erling Haaland this week. So we'll see how that decision panned out for me last week and how it is going to affect my decision making for this week right now. And as always, if you are enjoying this series, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of the fantasy football or predictions that we do every single week. Let's see how we got on in last week's game week. So, an overall score of 92. Like I say, I decided not to triple captain Marcus Rashford in my best of team because I feel it's better to triple captain Haaland this week. He still managed to get 20 points. So obviously, if you did triple captain, that would have scored you 60 points just for Rashford alone. So, big pressure on Haaland to deliver this week. We were also helped massively by some key cheap players like Mitoma getting 11, Rico Henry also getting 11, and a slightly more expensive Bruno Fernandes picking up 12 points in midfield as well. The only real disappointments last week were Ivan Toney not being able to capitalise on Brentford's win. He only managed to pick up 1 point, and unfortunately Ferguson was not able to get over his injury for Brighton, so he didn't play, meaning that Haaland, just as the sub in last week's team, came in for 2. Slight oversight on my part not to include Ollie Watkins, but I did go for Leon Bailey, and he sadly only picked up 2. So 92 points, which is a pretty decent score considering that we didn't triple captain. Good enough for 500,000 overall in the game week scorings. Let's see how many winners we had last time out. And we did have some winners after 2 game weeks without any winners. We do actually manage to get some winners this week. However, as you will see on the screen, only one of those winners didn't triple captain Marcus Rashford, and that was Ben Ortico. Very well done to score 96 without a triple captain. I think that is a fantastic score on any game week. So fair play to them for that. Obviously, we do have the other winners, of course. Jason D'Souza getting the highest score of 118, which would have been enough to beat the best of game week team, even if I did choose to triple captain Rashford last time out. So 118 is a fantastic score for them. And as you can see, we did have some other winners as well. But like I say, all of them, apart from Ben, did triple captain. So let's see what those scores have done to the league table. And we have had some movement in and around the top places. James Morris, of course, holds on to his lead. He was able to pick up 90 points this week. He also did not triple captain, so a big score of 90 without triple captaining, meaning that he will be more than likely using his triple captain on Erling Haaland this week as well. So big pressure on those people in the catching pack, because as you can see, those top 3, the remainder of the top 4 were all people that did, of course, win last time out. But there is, of course, Ben Ortico as well, not using his triple captain last time out. So getting a little bit more spicy at the top. It'll be interesting to see what happens this week with the massive double game week. And now, of course, it is my job to try and tell you guys who you should be going for. So this is the team that I'm going to go with. Now, you'll see immediately there are only 2 Manchester City players in this starting lineup, and that's because I really am struggling to understand what Pep Guardiola is doing right now in terms of picking his team. I think Erling Haaland, and as you can see, Ederson on the bench are probably the only 2 guaranteed starters right now. So that's why they're in the squad. But I'll be honest, against Aston Villa and Arsenal, I don't really back Man City to keep a clean sheet. So I'm not going for Manchester City goalkeeper or any of their defenders. Without Cancelo being sent out to Bayern Munich, I don't really see any of their defenders contributing going the other way. So I just don't think Manchester City defenders are a good option for this double game week, even though, like I say, it is a double game week. We have, of course, as we've said multiple times throughout this video already, gone for Erling Haaland as the triple captain at home to Aston Villa and away to Arsenal. You'd be backing him to get 3 or 4 goals across those 2 games, I would imagine. My other Manchester City player is going to be Jack Grealish. He seems to be the one that's playing the most right now. I would have stuck with Riyad Mahrez, but Guardiola hooked him against Tottenham first before anyone else, so that puts a little bit of doubt over him in terms of starting. And I also think that right now, Aston Villa's fitness over Their right-backs hasn't been particularly great, and I also think Ben White is probably Arsenal's weak point in their defence. So if Grealish is going to be playing, he's probably the most likely to do damage in both games in the wide area to Manchester City. That is why we have gone for him. As for the rest of the team, we will start in goal, and I'm going to go for Bernd Leno. I'm really struggling to see clean sheets in this game week. Obviously, that will mean that there'll be about 6 or 7 clean sheets across the board, but I'm really struggling to find where the clean sheets are going to come from this week. So it would have been very easy for me to just go, oh, Newcastle are playing Bournemouth, we'll go Pope, Trippier, Burn like we did a couple of weeks ago. But I always want to try and be a little bit different. So we're going to go for Bernd Leno against Nottingham Forest. Their away record is pretty shoddy, and Fulham's home record is very good this season. So I'm backing them to get the clean sheet against Forest. We have then, of course, still doubled down on the Newcastle defence with Trippier and Burn still against Bournemouth. And then the first of the 3 Arsenal players sees William Saliba, who I would back to probably get a clean sheet against Brentford. And you never know, the way Arsenal, I should say, are playing at home at the moment, and how poor Manchester City were going away to Spurs. Who knows? Maybe Arsenal actually managed to get the double clean sheet against Brentford and Man City. Into the midfield, and my boy is back, James Maddison, and what an impact he made immediately. 4-2 win away at Aston Villa for Leicester, and he was a key part in all of that. And even though they're at home to Tottenham, I've said this enough times, if James Maddison is fit, James Maddison is in my fantasy football team, so he gets back in immediately. No real surprises over Bukayo Saka. It was a toss-up between him and Odegaard, but I've kind of like why I've gone for Grealish for Man City. I'm going to go for Saka for Arsenal. I look at Brentford, and I feel like there's going to be space for Saka in behind Rico Henry if they get the opportunities. And then if Pep is going to stick with Rico Lewis at left-back, I think Bukayo Saka's having a field day against him. It'll be interesting to see if he opts for Rico Lewis or if he moves Nathan Ake out to left-back. Either way, I think Saka's probably got the most chance of doing damage against Man City. Next to him, we're going for James Ward-Prowse. At home to Wolves, Nathan Jones put out a very bizarre statement after his game the other day saying he's not going to discard his principles anymore. You're going to see a different style of play, and it's going to be enough to keep Southampton up. So a bold statement from Nathan Jones, but no doubt James Ward-Prowse will be heavily involved in whatever his plans are. So in a game at home to Wolves, I'm backing Ward-Prowse to do at least something. And then, of course, we move up to the remainder of the attack, where we've gone for Eddie Nketiah. I have to admit, he surprised me. I thought he would do okay. I didn't think he would do as well as he is doing. He's still very cheap for a striker on this game. And with the usual cheap strikers like Mitrovic and Ivan Toney not performing since the World Cup, Nketiah has been averaging 5.7 points a game. So if you've not got him in already, especially with a double game week coming up, I think Nketiah is an absolute must. And then I've gone for Callum Wilson as my final striker. Again, very tempting to go for Mitrovic at home to Nottingham Forest. However, like I say, he's not really been on form since the World Cup, whereas Callum Wilson has been on fire, and against really struggling Bournemouth, I feel like he is a very good option for this week. As for the bench, these are just players that, again, I think you could be looking at this week. Like I say, if I'm going to go for a Manchester City defender, it's going to be Edison, because he's the only one guaranteed to start both games. I've stuck with Matoma on the bench. Obviously, he is very good at 5.1, one of the most informed players in the league right now. But I just think away to Crystal Palace, that is a slightly harder fixture for him compared to the other people I've got in midfield. And obviously, a lot of you would still have Marcus Rashford against Leeds, and understandably as well. I just feel like you've got to try and mix it up a little bit with this series. Andy Robertson I've gone for on the bench. Obviously, Liverpool's form has been shoddy recently. Sean Dyche has come in and had a fantastic result with Everton. But going into the Merseyside derby, I just have a little feeling Liverpool might turn up for this one. I mean, I said it last week and they got beat 3-0 by Wolves. So who knows what's going to happen, but I feel like Robertson should be involved some part in this game, so I'm going to go for him as like my backup defender option, and then still Estepinian, who has been fantastic over the last few weeks since I've recommended him. And that is going to be it for today's video. All that is left to say that is if you think your team is capable of beating my best of team right there, then let me know by joining the SO99 League. League code is on your screen. Feel free to enter your team or just build a team from scratch just to challenge for this week. Winners will be shouted out as always in the next video. And thank you very much for watching. I'll be back tomorrow morning for my predictions.